Hello everyone and welcome to lesson 5.4B. I've entitled this video, The Ultimate Breakup Letter. This video is going to cover pages 131 to 133. Declaring Independence. The Second Continental Congress was filled with spirited debate. Should the colonies declare themselves as independent nation or stay under British rule? In June 1776, Virginia's Richard Henry Lee offered a bold resolution. Primary source, Richard Henry Lee, Resolution for Independence, 1776. That these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. The Congress debated Lee's resolution. Some delegates still thought the colonies should not form a separate nation. Others argued that war had already begun and they should be free from Great Britain. Still, others feared Britain's power to crush the rebellion. Question number 1. What resolution did Richard Henry Lee offer the Second Continental Congress? He offered the resolution that the United Colonies should be completely dissolved from Great Britain. We should be our own independent country. Question 2. What did the delegates feel about Lee's resolution? Well, some were in favor of it. Others thought, not so much. We might lose. They're going to crush us. So there was mixed opinions on his resolution. Writing the Declaration. While delegates debated, Congress chose a committee to write a Declaration of Independence. John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Robert Livingston, and Roger Sherman formed the committee. Adams asked Jefferson to write the first draft. Jefferson hesitated, but Adams persuaded him, saying, quote, primary source from the writings of Thomas Jefferson, 1822, "Reason first, you are a Virginian, and a Virginian ought to appear at the head of this business. Reason 2, second, I am obnoxious, suspected, and unpopular. You are very much otherwise. Reason 3rd, you can write 10 times better than I can." All right, question number 3. Which 5 members of the Second Continental Congress were elected to serve on the Declaration of Independence Committee? John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Robert Livingston, and Roger Sherman. Jefferson agreed that he would do the writing for the great project. He drew on ideas from English philosopher John Locke to explain why the 13 colonies were proclaiming their freedom. In the 1690s, Locke expressed the idea that people are born with certain natural rights to life, liberty, and property. Locke wrote that people form governments to protect those rights, and that a government interfering with those rights could rightfully be overthrown. Jefferson and other patriots agreed with Locke. Question number 4. Which one of the 5 members became the writer of the Declaration of Independence? Thomas Jefferson. Question 5. Which English philosopher was a huge influence on the creation of the Declaration of Independence? John Locke. Question 6. What were 3 of the big ideas that John Locke had talked about that obviously made their way into the Declaration of Independence? Number 1, he said that people were born with natural rights of life, liberty, and property. Jefferson would change that to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Locke secondly said that governments are formed to protect those rights. And third, Locke said that if a government interferes with those rights, the people had the right to overthrow that government. All those would make their way into the Declaration of Independence. On July 2nd, 1776, the Second Continental Congress voted on Lee's resolution for independence. 12 colonies voted for independence. New York did not vote, but later announced its support. Next, the delegates discussed Jefferson's draft of the Declaration of Independence. After making some changes, delegates approved the document on July 4th, 1776. John Hancock signed the Declaration first. He remarked that he wrote his name large enough for King George to read without his glasses. Eventually, 55 delegates signed the document announcing the birth of the United States. Question 7. What did 12 of the colonies vote on July 2nd, 1776? They voted in favor of independence. Question 8. What did the Second Continental Congress do to the draft of the Declaration of Independence from July 2nd to July 4th? They debated it and they made some changes. They made some amendments. They added some stuff. They subtracted some stuff. They made a lot of changes Jefferson really wasn't happy about, but that's what they did. Question 9. On what date did the delegates actually approve the Declaration of Independence? We've got July 4th. Question 10. Who signed the Declaration of Independence first, and what made his signature noteworthy? Well, as you can see on this slide, it was John Hancock, and as you can see from this close-up on the left, or compare it to the signatures on the right here, you can see he clearly put his signature a lot bigger than everyone else. Copies of the Declaration of Independence were printed and sent out to people in the newly declared states. George Washington had the Declaration read to his troops in New York City on July 9th. In Worcester, Massachusetts, a public reading of the Declaration of Independence led to repeated cheers, firing of musketry and cannons, bonfires, and other demonstrations of joy. Question number 11. How did the colonies respond to the Declaration of Independence when copies of it were printed and sent out to the people? There was a lot of celebration, a lot of firing of guns, a lot of bonfires. Of course, that leads to the fireworks that we now have for the Declaration of Independence and the 4th of July. The Declaration of Independence. The Declaration had 4 major sections. The preamble, or introduction, states that people who wish to form a new country should explain their reasons for doing so. The next 2 sections of the Declaration list the rights that the colonies believe they should have and their complaints against Great Britain. The final section proclaims the existence of the new nation. John Adams expected the day Congress voted on Lee's resolution for independence to be celebrated as a national holiday. He wrote, quote, "The second day of July 1776 ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, and illuminations from one end of this continent to the other." Instead, July 4th, the date the delegates actually adopted the Declaration of Independence, is celebrated as Independence Day. The Declaration of Independence states what Jefferson and many Americans thought were universal principles, that is, principles that apply to all people in all situations. It begins by describing what had long been viewed as basic English rights. Primary source, Declaration of Independence, 1776. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Declaration states that government exists to protect these rights. If government fails, quote, "it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government." The document goes on to list grievances against the king and parliament. These include, quote, "cutting off our trade with all parts of the world," and, quote, "imposing taxes on us without our consent." Americans had, quote, "petitioned for redress of these grievances." The British had ignored or rejected these petitions. Question number 12. What is a preamble? A preamble is an introduction to something, like a document or a famous speech. Question 13. What does the preamble to the Declaration of Independence state? It says, hey, here's why we are going to form a new country. We're going to lay out the reasons why we are going to make a brand new country. Question 14. What are the 2 main things discussed in the next 2 sections of the Declaration of Independence? Well, they first talk about the rights that the colonists believed they should have, and then secondly, there's a whole list of complaints called grievances that we basically said, hey, we are angry about this, we are upset about this, we want to see these things eliminated. We're not happy with what you've done to us, King George, and we don't like it one bit. And here are all the things we are upset about. Question 15. What important thing is stated in the last section of the Declaration of Independence? It states that we, the United States of America, are a new nation. Question 16. What date did Adams believe would be celebrated as Independence Day, and what date is actually the date we celebrate Independence Day? He thought it was going to be July 2nd, the day that was voted on, but instead, it's July 4th, the day it was actually adopted. Question 17. According to Jefferson, all men are what? Created equal. Question 18. According to Jefferson, what are our 3 unalienable rights? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Question 19. According to Jefferson, why does government exist? Government exists to protect those rights. Question 20. According to Jefferson, if a government fails to protect the rights of the people have the right to do what? They have the right to alter or abolish that government and put in a new one. Finally, the Declaration announces America's new status, pledging, quote, "To each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. The Americans declared themselves a new nation. The struggle for independence, the American Revolution, had begun." And that last question, what 14 words does Jefferson use to close the Declaration? And what does that show us about the 56 delegates that eventually signed it? He closes with the words, "We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." It showed that all these men that were signing the Declaration of Independence, they were all in this together, and they realized they were risking their lives because they were committing treason. And had the Declaration of Independence's words not come to completion because we lost the war, those people would have probably been executed by Britain for committing treason. And so they all realized they were in this together, their lives, their fortunes, and their honor, all in this together. This was a huge risk that they were all taking. Well, thank you so much for watching. Before we go, of course, I've got something for you. Benjamin Franklin wasn't trusted to write the Declaration of Independence, as it was feared that he would put a joke in it. After signing the Declaration of Independence, he did joke, "Gentlemen, we must now all hang together, or we shall most assuredly all hang separately." Benjamin Franklin and his sense of humor. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.